Okay, well, let's get started. So welcome to our webinar today, which is being delivered by our partner here, Steven Sandford. Welcome, Steven.
Hi, Joe.
And this is all about the 7 ways to grow your business. So before I hand over to Steven, just a couple of housekeeping points. First one is this webinar is being recorded, and we will make an on-demand version available on the website later on today. We thought about the weather today and decided it was a bit hot to let this run on for too long and let you get back to the sunshine. So if you do have any questions, we are a little bit tight for time today. So any questions that you have, rather than using the Q&A buttons, what we suggest is that we have some contact details at the end of the presentation, and just email Steven directly with any questions that you might have as a result of this, and Steven will be happy to respond back to you. If you do need to leave the meeting at any time, just click leave meeting and you can rejoin at any point using the link that you've used to join this morning. If you do have any technical issues, you can't hear us or something seems to be going wrong, use the chat. I'll be standing by. I can try and deal with that if you've got any problems. But let's not waste any more time. I'm going to hand over to Steven.
Thanks, Joe, and good morning to all of you on this quite hot and humid day. And so without further ado, we will crack on the 7 ways to grow your business. So here's a quote from Thomas Jefferson, who, I'll be honest, I haven't quoted too much before, but since my kids can now recite the whole of Hamilton off by heart, suddenly Thomas Jefferson takes on a whole new meaning. But he is quoted, saying, if you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done. And look, these words, were written 230 odd years ago, and they're as true today as they were then. And this session today is about challenging you to do something different in your business. Okay, so sounds quite scary, but also exciting. So let's crack on. Okay, so this is the agenda for today, and just to say, and I think as Joe said as well, this is normally, just to clarify, a session that I will do in-house with clients. So it would be a much longer, probably a good few hour session, but we're doing this today for everyone. So it's going to be quite a whistle-stop tour, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through how to avoid going insane in the next year, getting from A to B, the roadmap, the dashboard. Then we're going to go into, once you've understood that, the 7 ways to grow your business. You'll be pleased to know we won't be doing a worked example. That would be something, again, that we'll do in the long session, and then any next steps and options for support. So, look, before I start, I guess the biggest problem in small businesses is what's called FTI. FTI, of course, stands for failure to implement. And if you don't write your actions down, you won't remember them. Just as if you didn't write your business goals down for the next year, you'll be far less likely to achieve them. So please, if you get any actions or you feel during this webinar some ideas that spring to mind or notes you want to take, please do write them down. We will afterwards, if you want, be sharing the slides. So you don't need to write down necessarily the slides, but the action points, I think, are very, very important. Okay. So as Albert Einstein, a little bit later in life than Thomas Jefferson, but as he famously said, and I think most people know this, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. And so we all know this, right? So what do we have to do differently this year to avoid insanity with our business? Okay, well, we've got 4 choices. Choice 1 is we do nothing. We say, this was a lovely session with Steven. I probably should do some things that I want to change, but it all seems too hard. I'm quite okay. Or next, we retreat and we go back into our business and we try a couple of things that were perhaps mentioned here today. But then, of course, business gets in the way of it. You have a couple of bad days, some disasters happen, and all of this nice stuff that's been mentioned today gets put to the backside. So we retreat. 3, we take normal amounts of action. You do perhaps from today the few easier things here, and you get a few quick instant results and maybe some quick cash flow improvement, but you haven't really fundamentally changed the business. And those quick wins evaporate along with any sort of savings cash or anything like that. And of course, the last one is to take massive amounts of action. And, you know, this is where you want to fundamentally change your business. Remember, the business is here to serve you and not the other way around. And this is something, especially for SME businesses, that, and I can speak to self as co-running an SME business. You have to remember what the order is, who is serving who, and something very, very, something very, very important. And look, you know, other business owners at the moment, and we know, are lifting their game. You know, they're improving their marketing. They're getting better at selling. They're building online presence. Their technology and the cloud are driving worldwide competition, and it's starting to put downward pressure on prices and margins. So, you know, if we stand still, we don't stay in the same place, we go backwards. So let's look at a few companies that have just, you know, have changed the dynamic, and we stood still. So, of course, very famously, Airbnb. You know, who hasn't booked a room with Airbnb? We're using it later in the summer to go to the Cotswolds, but we use Airbnb. It's one of the most popular ways to book accommodation, and it's truly disrupted the industry. I think at the latest valuation, it was around $113 billion, and it owns no hotels. And the founders started their company, as we know, renting out their airbeds in the living room because the city hotels were full, and the rest is history. The point is that Airbnb, as we know, is just a booking platform. Then we've got Alibaba, you know, probably the world's biggest business-to-business consumer online retail platform. It surpassed Walmart in the US as the world's largest retailer, and yet doesn't have any physical stores. Then we've got Uber. Anyone driven an Uber taxi? I'm sure, you know, most of us here, of course, have. They own no taxes. Their latest valuation upwards of $90 billion. And they essentially joined geo-mapping with a smart booking platform. You know, ask a standard taxi driver how they feel about them, and it's going to be very controversial. Yet, you know, there was a debate as to, you know, quite what they've done, and for the consumer, you know, what they've achieved. And then the last one, of course, is Facebook. Now, my kids, who are sort of teenage years, tell me that Facebook is just for old people, but nevertheless, they probably don't realize that Facebook also owns Instagram and WhatsApp and so on, so which they very much use. But look, Facebook they built a platform where they don't provide the content, we do. So you can see all of these companies have disrupted, and the mainstream, whether it's the hotels, whether it's taxi drivers, whether it's mainstream media, have all been disrupted. And so if you stand still, someone is going to be there to try and disrupt. So we have to look forward, and we have to constantly try and evolve and change. So with that change, essentially, I call this is the 5 A's of change, and it's a process. It's a process for us to first get into this mindset of change, and what does it mean, and what's the impact. Okay, so the first thing of change is awareness. Okay, you know, you need to be aware that there's an issue. You need to know that if you don't make a change, the business will be impacted. For example, in a business, and the profits are going to drop. You know, you have to have that awareness. Obviously, you could just have your head in the sand and not do anything. But I think stage 1 of changing is just to have that awareness that you know, that you're aware of things going on. And what I'm going to do during this example is use perhaps something a little bit more personal to me to illustrate this. So up until about a year ago, I was absolutely terrified of dogs, and so with that in mind, this change, I was very much aware that I wasn't, that I was terrified of dogs and wasn't in denial of that. Okay, so then part 2 is acceptance. And from a business perspective, you accept that for you to grow your business, or for me to grow my business, I must free up my time and empower my team. I have to do this as a business owner myself. And, so you have to accept there are things that you're going to need to do. Whether you know what they are at the moment, you need to accept that you're aware of these issues and you accept you need to change. And in my example, with the fact that I was scared of dogs, well, the problem that I then had was that my brother bought a COVID dog. That's not a dog with COVID, but along with thousands of others, bought a dog during the COVID lockdown period. And although not seeing my brother wasn't so much of an issue, not seeing my newborn niece was an issue. And therefore I accepted that there was this issue and there was this fear of dogs, and that if I want to see my niece, I need to do something about it. And I accepted there is an issue. So then we come to action. And the action for myself, for business, and for yourself, is to do a business plan in order that you can track your year. And in my case, the action was for me to go for a meal in my brother's garden, where the dog would be there as well, which was quite a scary thought, but I braved myself to do it. So we have action, but next, that's all well and good, action, but if we don't have accountability, if we don't have someone independent who's going to hold you account to what you do, then it's just not going to happen. If you, for example, you had New Year's resolutions and you said you were not going to eat chocolate for this year, or you're going to go to the gym, the classic one, or something like that. If you don't have someone, it's why a lot of people pay a lot of money for a personal trainer, because they know that if it's down on them and there's no one and they're not accountable to anyone, then it just won't happen. So in my case, the dogs, the accountability was actually from my children, perhaps not independent, but nevertheless, they were pushing me to do it and calling me chicken and probably not other nice terms that I was scared of the dog. So they were pushing me to do it. I had this accountability. I felt, I've got to do it. I can't back out of it now. And there's going to be some accountability to it. I'll see my kids being disappointed. I won't be seeing my niece. And so the last stage after the accountability is acknowledgement. And, we can be accountable, again, and take the personal trainer at the gym, or, you do this New Year's resolutions, or you do a business plan, but also you need someone to say how you've done and how have you achieved. It's one thing, help someone to do it and getting you through the process, but actually when you take a step back and you look back after what you've achieved, there needs to be some acknowledgement of what you've done, and some positive reinforcement when it changes are actions. Getting through that afternoon with the dog in the garden was tough, but my wife and my kids were brilliant with it, and actually I'm genuinely not joking. We currently have my brother's dog in our home now for 2 weeks as they've gone away for a couple of weeks, so we are dog sitting. So really what has changed in a year is, for me, with dogs is quite astounding, really. So great, we understand now what we need to do with change, and the next stage really is what's called your roadmap. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I said to you, which direction do you travel if you're going to London? Okay, what direction would you travel your London, assuming you're not London based? Well, of course, look, the answer is a little bit rhetorical, because the answer depends on where you are. Okay, if you're in Brighton, it's going to be traveling north. If you're in Manchester, traveling south. Until you know where you are and what location you're at, you don't know where you need to get to. So bringing this into a business context, until you understand what your business looks like now, and actually mapping out, right, what have we got in the bank? What's our cash balance? How much are we spending every month? Where do we want to go? What's our target? What do we want to achieve? For example, we may have loans. Look, under COVID time, people had to take out various loans, this and the other. Let's say for the moment you've got £50,000 of loans outstanding, and in a year's time you would like not only for that £50,000 to be cleared, you'd like to also have positive £50,000 in the bank account. So your roadmap from where you are, your negative £50,000, to where you want to go, positive £50,000, and your roadmap is earning net or getting cash of another £100,000. That's your roadmap. That's what you need to do. But you can't do that until you know where you are, and of course you know where you want to go. But it's not just the cash that's important with this roadmap. Remember, as we said before, the business is here to serve you, not the other way around. What do you want to have? Think about your ideals of work, how many hours you would want to work, the stress that you have, the sort of holidays you'd like to enjoy as the fruits of your work, and the cash flow of the business. So what are these, what are these things that are important, that are the triggers for you? And these, as well as the financial, these are very, very critical and important for you in your roadmap. So we've got the roadmap. Now, how do we get from A to B? The way to do this is to have a business plan. Now, for some of you, a business plan, you think, oh my gosh, what is this? This is not a business. A business plan. What we work with our clients with is not this 30-page document that you may have had to give to the bank once, or the thing that you wrote when you first started your business to map out everything that was going to happen, and now of course is gathering dust in a filing cabinet somewhere. No, this is a short, direct, focused business plan, and the business plan will cover, for example, some of these key things. It will cover your core purpose. It will cover your target customers, the numbers you want to achieve to get what you want, and then we'll speak about more of that later. The main projects that you need to put in place to achieve what you want, the individual actions you need to take to get each project across the line, and who's dealing with what and when. And so the question is, who's the best person to help you create your business plan and make sure you do what you said and hold you accountable as a result of that plan? Well, you could do it yourself, I guess, but like we use the example of the personal trainer in the gym and the New Year's resolutions, that it seems obvious that they must be independent and they must hold you accountable. So they can come down on you if you don't achieve your goals, as opposed to giving you the "they're there, it's okay, dear, don't worry" line. That's soft coaching, and it clearly doesn't work. So we've got this idea, we've got this plan, we've spoken about some of the key things that would be in this plan. But of course, one of the key points is your budget. What numbers do you need to achieve to get to where you want to be? And you need to start with what you want to have and then build from there. This is what's called a high level budget. So it's working at the bottom, what you want to achieve, and then working your way up, rather than starting from your sales at the top and the profit is the resulting figure. So again, if I was doing this as a seminar, or as a seminar within a client's office, we'd work on this, and we'd say what profits are you looking for, and we say, right, okay, we want to make, for example, £150,000 a year. We'd say, okay, fine, and right, and what do you think your overheads are on that business? You say, well, okay, say for example £350,000 a year. Okay, great. So the profit is 150,000 and overheads are 350,000. That means that we've got to start with a gross profit of £500,000. So whatever we're doing, we've got to end up with a gross profit of £500,000. Okay. Well, what gross margin do you make on what you sell, whether it's a service or a product? And for example, it may be, I don't know, something like say 30-40%, something like that. Whatever it is. And it comes out, that maybe you've got to have sales of, for example, 1.3 million, and that's the top. So you've worked from the bottom, the profit that you need 150,000, and you've worked up eventually to sales. So you said, right, we need to make 1.3 million pounds of sales in a year in order to end up with a profit of 150,000 pounds, which is what we want. Okay, very, very important to do it in that way, and it's something most of our successful clients do this on a month-by-month basis. They do this as a forecast every year, and some of our clients are on this webinar today. And for those of you that I know that do the forecast every month, how do you feel about it? I'm sure that that pretty happy with yourself once you've done it. And in time, look, you should be able to, for those of you who don't do it, should be able to do it yourself. But of course, we can help you if you want us to teach you how to do this on a month-by-month basis. Okay. So all of this, the business plan, the budget. Okay, again, even if it's a simplified thing and it's not 30 pages, it's whatever it is, 5 pages or whatever else it is. Nevertheless, even that potentially on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis is too much to look to track how the business is going and tracking. As I said, the forecasting is done perhaps on a monthly basis, but you want stuff that's in real time. And so really this comes from, if you like, having a dashboard. And so, different people, dashboard's a bit of a buzzword for a number of years, but what does a dashboard mean? Well, here's a picture of a car, and of course the dashboard on the car, it tells you how fast you're going or how slow you're going. It says whether you have enough fuel, whether the oil, whether you've got enough water. Essentially, it gives you an indication about whether you'll make it to your destination. And it's the same in business. The things on your dashboard, on your business dashboard, are referred to in, as we joke, accountanese, this language of business and accounting that we talk in. But these KPIs, and KPIs stand for key performance indicators. And essentially, these are the small number of things that will tell you if you're on or off track in relation to your plan. So again, if I was in your company, I would now start, brainstorming and saying, what do you think in your business are the 4 or 5 key KPIs that, that would track, if you're on track for your business or indeed off track, what do you consider these most important ones? So as we're not doing this workshop today, I'll just throw out a few here now, but it may be, for example, if you're in your manufacturing business, that the important KPIs may be your gross profit percentage or the cost of reworking the product, if there's faults or defects, the work in progress days, or indeed the debtor days. It may be if you're a retailer, your KPIs are the sales, the gross profit percentage, the average client spend, or the transaction frequency. Whatever the top 4 or 5 are for you, they must be captured and reported on a regular basis. It's important that you focus on just a small number of KPIs. So we're condensing this thing down from the 5 A's of change. We're working it down the business plan, the roadmap, getting this down, this dashboard to this KPIs. Okay, and these will be the things that most drive your business. And look, following the car theme, this is the question: how to engage your co-drivers. Remember back to the New Year's resolutions that I said. Who has someone that holds them to account for what they've committed to? If you're honest with yourselves, who's holding you accountable? What are the consequences for you do if you don't say what you're going to do? Do you have a soft or a hard coach? I guess, again, thinking of my kids, thinking of homework. At school, there's consequences. You don't do your homework, you're going to get detention. You're going to get told off by parents. There's consequences for not doing it. I'm sure if the homework was optional, my kids, and certainly my son, would very much define optional as not having to do the homework. So having someone that's accountable, you're accountable to, is very, very, exceptionally important. And therefore, really that person must be, as we said, independent. Do you think having your spouse or even your, a colleague, would that work? It's a good, it's a very, very good question. It's a very, very good question. So as we carry on with the car theme, the question is, we're on this journey, we're going along, and how are we going to, on this journey, maximize our fuel efficiency? Especially, this is even more topical, as we know, with petrol prices going becoming astronomical, and at the same time we want to minimize the wear and tear on our machinery so we can get to our destination, with the least cost of repair, and and achieve what we want to achieve by the end. So there are 4 actions that you need to do then to hopefully, and this condenses really what we've spoken about just before. Number 1, we need to set an annual plan. Okay. Number 2, we need to set an annual budget. So you know the numbers, you know where you're going to. Number 3, you've got to then change that budget that you may look at every month, we go through it every month, to these 4 or 5 most important KPIs. And then finally, number 4, you have someone independent that holds you accountable to your plan. Okay, so now we've spoken about all of these ways of change. We're actually going to get to the topic of today, which is the 7 ways to grow your business. But we needed to give that introduction because unless you have this mindset of change and you appreciate what we're going to do, and what you need to do. I mean, we do it ourselves, as in our business, in our account firm. I wouldn't speak about things that we don't do ourselves. You need to be in that right mindset before we can understand and have much greater appreciation for these 7 ways to grow your business. So we're now going to crack on with those. And number 1, it all sounds like top of the pops, or not the top. I'm now showing my age. Or we wish to say with the Apple Music charts or the Spotify download stream charts. Number 1 is 7 ways to grow your business. Number 1 is to increase your customer retention rate. So we all know that it's much cheaper to make sales to existing customers. In fact, statistics show that it's 6 times easier and cheaper to make sales to existing customers than it is to new customers. So the question becomes, what are you doing to delight your customers and make them want to return to you? Do you know what your customers want? What's your current communication strategy with your customers? These are important questions. And you need to be following, again here, an acronym, the FGG principle. FGG principle is F for find out what they want, G, go get it, and G, give it to them. Find out what they want, go and get it, and give it to them. Okay, so if it's customer retention rate, again, I would ask yourselves, if I was with you, what sort of things do you do to retain your customers? But for the benefit of this webinar here now, I'll throw some examples. It may be things like, for example, a loyalty program, or it might be asking customers what they want with a survey, or to follow up with them after they've bought something, after they bought a purchase with a feedback form. Were they happy with their purchase? And indeed, even things like social activities for your customers. I know that probably sounds could be a scary thought to socialize with your customers, but a lot of people, a lot of companies do that because some is more practical to do with than others. Number 2 in the 7 ways to grow your business. So we said, right, your existing customers, you've got to hold on to them. You've got to retain those. Fine. Number 2, is obvious, of course, is to generate more leads. But do you know the difference between a suspect, a lead, a prospect, a customer, a loyal customer, and a raving advocate? There's a thing called the marketing funnel, where with someone who is in our target market but hasn't yet responded, for example, to any of our marketing. We know who they are, they're just not responding for whatever reason. When that person responds to marketing or makes an inquiry, at that point they then become a lead. So they move along the journey. So they're potentially a suspect, they move along to a lead. And it's important to follow your leads and give them an opportunity to buy, moving them from being leads then onto prospects. At this point, we move along the journey, the lead generation phase, to the sales phase. So they're now in this prospect, they like what you're saying, they like the message that's going on, but then it's really important that they become our likely customers. And after a single purchase, they become our customers. And of course, after repeated purchases, they become our loyal customers. And finally, we want to get all our loyal customers to become raving advocates for us, for our business, for what we serve. And we want them to tell everyone about their experience with us and generate referrals. In fact, for us in accounting, in the accounting world, as much as we're doing these, webinars, and there's not, many of you on here that aren't clients of Davis Grant, referrals still is a significant way to grow one's business, and we're forever grateful to all our clients here on the webinar today who do kindly refer clients to Davis Grant. So, how do you keep track of your leads? This is a big question. Do you have, for example, a customer relationship management system? Is it up to date? How do you keep, how do you ensure that your leads are followed up? You may have had a lead, they said, come back to me in a few months' time. Where do you keep track of that they said, come back to you in a few months' time? Who's your target market? It's not doing door-to-door leaflets or just hoping, your website attracts people from around the world. How have you understood what your target market is? And, things like, using, SEO to really target clients, target potential customers and clients. And some lead generation strategies may be, for example, depending on the business you are, is to attend events and to bump into your potential customers at those events. I know whenever I go to accounting conferences or exhibitions, I'm bombarded by people trying to sell me accounting products and software and whatever else. Of course, then you've also got networking. Some are far more successful than others, but they've certainly been a proven way to build up leads. You can have your own newsletters, have a strategic alliance with a third party. For example, often we at Davis Grant, we work with banks and other different third parties. So you work together, utilizing their customers, our customers to merge together. Websites, blogs, and even having open days, obviously depending on what your product is and what you serve. So the 7 ways, we're at number 3 now, which is great. So we said, number 1, concentrate, keep your customers, keep the ones you've got, retain them. Number 2, start these leads. But having leads is irrelevant, unless you actually increase your conversion rate and you increase how many of those leads actually become customers. So number 1, of course, is are you measuring your success at converting leads and converting quotes to proposals to sales? Do you regularly review why you aren't converting more of them? Are there perhaps standout performers in your team who have higher than the average conversion rate? Are you using the right people in your sales team? When you deal with customers, sneak preview of the next one. Okay, when you deal with customers, are you dealing with the decision makers, or are you just constantly getting rebuffed at reception? Don't deal with the gatekeepers. Get straight to the people that can make things happen. So your conversion rate, might be sales made as a percentage of proposals delivered, or indeed the number of sales meetings held. If you're not measuring these, you need to start right now. Again, I would work with you to see what do you think and what would work best in your business, but just throwing out some of them here that might be applicable to your company, your business, is using a follow-up system, is having perhaps guarantees or sales training to your team, which I spoke on earlier about those that are perhaps greater performers. And it might be you might be a salesperson and trained in that, or you might not. You might have people in your team who are great at selling that can train other than the team that perhaps aren't doing so well. And of course, when you're, if in your business you give out proposals, well then maybe instead of doing a proposal with just one price that then has to be negotiated, it may be that you give multiple options, maybe three different proposals and prices that then gives the customer a greater chance and a choice of saying yes to you. Number 4 is on the growth business is to increase the transaction frequency. So this is great. We've now got this new client, this new customer on board, and it's great. We've worked it through. We've had the leads. We've improved the conversion, but now how do we get them to buy more and increase their transaction, or to buy more, increase the transaction, increase the transaction frequency? Get my words out there. So as I said earlier, it's much harder to sell to new customers than it is to sell to existing customers. It makes much more sense, therefore, to encourage those customers to buy from you more often. And so therefore, some transaction frequency, strategies to try and encourage customers to buy from you more often is, for example, newsletters that advertise what's going on and what you've currently got in stock or what you're servicing. It may be special offers or loyalty events, for example. It could be a social event where no obligation, but in a sense they really build up that sense of loyalty to the company. Can be using reminders, of course, and even, again, it depends what sector you're in, but having some sort of VIP service or a membership card service, the customer feels very valued and therefore want to engage and transact with you as a company more. Number 5. So we've said these new customers, we want them to have increasing transactions, but of course another way of working on that is to increase the actual transaction value. So when they do purchase from you on that occasion, how can we get them to get those customers, get those clients to actually spend more with you? Now, it reminds me very much of this when I was putting this together. Often I think of when I was 16 and worked at Woolworths, of blessed memory, of those that remember Woolworths on here. And when I used to work on the till there, we had to, if we were selling any electrical goods, we had to, of course, offer, would you like batteries with this? And if we were selling birthday cards, we'd say, do you want to buy stamps with this? And of course it worked. And it's therefore the transaction value that people spent goes up. So in your business, what sort of things could you think of that could increase the transaction value for you? It may be, the supermarket strategy, the 4 for the price of 3, for example. It could be a discount for add-on sales, maybe upselling, or, as I said, again, this different proposals, the different options. You may have, the cheaper option, which is perhaps what the client thought they wanted, but then there are other options which actually now the client, the customer is aware of those other options, that actually they realize, I really like that higher option, that gold service, whatever it may be. So we're up to number 5. We've got 2 to go. So I wonder if you're thinking now of what the other 2 are. Well, we've had 5 which are absolutely primarily sort of sales focused on that top line. But as we spoke about when we were working out if you remember earlier on when we said, the example of someone who wants, say, £150,000 profit at the end of the year, and working that back up when they had their, what are the overheads in the year? What are the, what's the cost of sales? What's the gross profit margin? To work up to the sales, we're looking at the sales, but now there are other figures in that we need to, of course, address. And number 6 is to reduce the cost of sales, the variable costs. These are, again, in the terminology, these are exactly the costs that are directly related to the sales that you make. So, if you're selling a product that you manufacture is the cost of actually making that product. And so, what could you do to look at to reduce those costs of sales? Because of course reducing the costs increases, is another way of increasing the profits. Different ways of increasing profits: increase your sales, I would say, and look at reducing those cost of sales as variable costs. So again, each of you in your business will have your own different cost of sales. Every business, although it has commonality, there are of course unique things with every company. But for example, it may be things like looking at supplier terms and seeing if they can be negotiated, or for example, early payment discounts. You may be lucky enough to have a nice amount of cash in the bank. Well, you can utilize that by saying, you know what, if I pay you within 5 working days instead of 30 days, can I get a discount? It may be, it may be reducing the rework or the wastage that's used in making the products. Could be having better systems that you produce what you're doing in a more slick way, and of course, recording the time and materials better. So number 6 is reducing those costs of sales, those variable costs. Essentially, it's these costs before you get to gross profit. These are the costs that we're talking about. And number 7 is reduce overheads. How often do you review your overheads, or administrative expenses, whatever you want to call it? This should be done at a minimum annually. And you should go through your annual financial statements or go through your zero. If you get our clients that get monthly management accounts or those that get quarterly management accounts, go through those and compare and see how much you're paying. Wow, I didn't realize that's gone up in the year. Didn't realize, especially now, we've got, with lighter heat power, with all sorts of stuff, costs are just going out, are going crazy. It's really important to keep a handle of what you're paying and your IT subscriptions and those sorts of things. And of course, it would be remiss of me while we're on this subject to not talk about accounting fees, of course. And we're telling you to reduce your costs. And so I'm going to say something perhaps bold, but I would say that if you think that, I'm talking here to, I guess, our existing clients on this webinar, but if you think we are solely a cost, then you should look to cut the cost, and do it now as much as you would do it with any other overhead. A bit radical, a bit bold for me to say, but of course, what I believe is that, and what we at Davis Grant a business advisor, we believe that we're of course the strategic partner with you, and we think, especially in these times, that you as a business need people like ourselves more than ever. Even when the times are tough is when you need us the most. When times are good, in some respects can say, don't need it, everything's ticking along fine, it's no problem, it's easy, whatever else it is. These are the times when you need us. And so therefore it's really important that you think, I can't speak of other accounting firms, but for us, Davis Grant, of course, you think of us as an investment, rather than a cost. Our goal, of course, is always to save you more in tax as well as help you grow your business, way more than any amount that you pay in accounting. So of course, that's very, very important. So this, I think, is Joe may touched on this before. We are going to, this is a sort of, say, a truncated webinar. I think, as I've said, and at this point, don't worry, we're not going to be going through this worked example, but we would get, and I'll get, again, if I was working with you, I'd get these models out, everything we put together, and it produces this really great, sort of great model where we would input all of these figures. We would input, right, okay, what are the customer leads? How many are you getting? What is your profit? What's the customer retention rate? What's the average transaction size? What's the frequency that customers, spend? And we would, you move it around, and as you change each figure, it would impact it would all filter through and impact to the bottom line of the profit. And so that's something that we would very much, work with you on, if we're with you. But don't worry, it's hot. We won't do that. We won't do that today. So we're coming up, actually, I guess quite good timing. We're sort of 45 minutes in, so we're racing ahead. This is great. Maybe I apologize if I've been speaking too fast. Maybe it's my excitement about all this, but this is something that myself and the team and partners and the team at Davis Grant are really, really passionate about, and it's something that we think, is absolutely vital for every business. And it's so often this is left, as I said, to just it's done as a one-off exercise 10 years ago, 5 years ago, not revisited, and it's something that needs to be on, like a personal trainer, on the whole time, to keep you on track and get you to achieve that the business is working for you and not you working for the business. Okay, so look, what are the next steps? How can we help you? Well, one is, we've spoken on this, is the business planning session. This can give you absolute clarity about what you want from your business this year. It can put you back in control and removing those shackles. It gives you these articulated, smart objectives. Remember, this business planning session is not this 30-page document. It's this focusing with smart goals for the year, for the next 90 days. So again, it's in more bite-sized chunks. A year can seem a long time, so 90 days to make sure that you overcome those vulnerabilities and challenges in your business. It helps you have prioritized actions and gets you what you want, and improves, hopefully, your confidence and motivation to really achieve it, to become realistic. And look, one of the other options that we give to clients and clients that we work with and find huge benefit from this is our quarterly coaching. Again, having a one-off exercise is great, but having that quarterly check-in, making sure you're accountable to someone independent, someone external, where we're going to be, all over you, and we're not going to be your best friend, and we're not going to tell you everything is fine. Even though you are paying us, we are going to be there to be tough and say things that are not maybe not nice and more truthful, but it's for your own, like a personal trainer, for your own benefit. And we need it's tough. It's tough love, and we'll go through that. But it's more than that. This is a tight accountability to make sure that you stay on track to your plan, and ultimately, it's going to allow you to take back control of your business. Okay, and look, just for the benefit of being here on this webinar today, we're offering for everyone, for both clients on here and non-clients, a complimentary 1-hour meeting with us. For our clients, this will be a complimentary client review, and for those that aren't yet clients, and maybe one day will become clients, this would be a proactive accounts meeting. And during this meeting, we would identify your business goals. We look at not just your business goals, and this is perhaps something again that differentiates perhaps us from others, is that we look at your personal goals as well, not just your business goals, because ultimately, what's the business there for? Is to provide you what you want in your personal life. Is to identify the problems and the challenges that are getting in the way of the achievement of your goals, to determine a process to work together, to overcome the problems and challenges and achieve those goals. So quite a lot to pack into an hour, but it's something that I say, the benefit of those that are in this heat that have done that and have stayed the course for this sort of 50 minutes. That's the offer today. The details are going to come up shortly, so if you are interested, please do drop my email, and we'd love to get that arranged for you. Remember, of course, the definition of insanity, as Albert Einstein said, if you do this, if you do things, if you keep doing the same things, you're going to get the same result. If you things are going to change, and yet you're doing it the same way. So you need to start doing things differently. And now is the time. We're halfway through the year. We've just passed the halfway mark, 30th of June. So we're halfway through a year. So now for the second half of the year is a great time to think about what you're going to be doing for the rest of 22, and perhaps even thinking ahead for 2023. So lastly, after the webinar, we will be sending around evaluation form. So it'd be great for everyone to, if you can, complete it, so we know what you found interesting or not, or if I did indeed speak way too fast, But I think the biggest takeaway of all of this is for yourself to, as we said at the beginning, you need to write things down, and you need to take away and write down, after we finish this, just take 3-4 minutes to just write down the 3 most important actions that you're going to take from this webinar. And that's something that then you need to be, to guide you. And this is the question, the lenders we started, will you do nothing? Will you just repeat what you've always done before? Will you take normal amounts of action, or are you going to take massive amounts of action? That's the question. Good, right, I think with that heat, you will all be now rewarded and can go and get yourselves an ice cream, of course, unless not having ice cream was your New Year's resolution, in which case definitely do not go and get an ice cream. Okay, great. Here's my details on this slide. Thank you very much for your time this morning. It was really great, and it was really great to share some of these ideas with you today. Thank you.